Have you ever noticed there is something off about the moon? Every night when you look up into the sky, you will always find the same picture, a full moon. The moon never changes, it has no lunar cycle. Most will pass this off by saying the developers didn't feel it was necessary. Usually I'd be inclined to agree. Many of you probably haven't even noticed, or if you have, you didn't think much of it. But this is a special case. The mentions of the moon are far too many to ignore. For example, Mondstadt means Moon City, and Liyue means Jade Moon or Glazed Moon. But the references do not stop there. Many items are associated with the night sky. Primo gems are stars. Resin is in the shape of a crescent moon, not to mention the blessing of the Welking Moon. References to the moon persist throughout the in-game books. In the Moonlit Bamboo Forest, Heart's Desire, The Drunkard's Tale, and The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies. All these books and more all have references to the moon and its light. But all this may still not be enough to justify a lunar cycle. Then how about the prophecies in regards to the Cataclysm, the Crimson Moon that we see in the We Will Be Reunited trailer? Then there's the Kingdom of Conria that fell to these events, and the name of that kingdom, the Eclipse Dynasty. So all these references to the moon, yet they didn't put it in? It makes me think the whole thing was done on purpose. The occurrence of a full moon happens when the Earth is in between it and the Sun. You'd think the moon would get hidden in the Earth's shadow, but the moon is actually a few degrees offset, enough so that it receives the light of the Sun. So if Teyvat uses similar logic to the real world, the way the moon would remain full is if the world and the moon orbit the Sun but the moon remains behind. The moon and the Sun are fixed in place and the world rotates. Or the world is fixed and the Sun and the moon orbit around at a fixed speed, resulting in the world being consistently between the two. The only other explanation is if the moon itself is emitting its own light. But before we delve into Teyvat's equivalent of the flat earth theory, let's explore the origins of the moon. Many of the texts I mentioned earlier talk about the origins of the moon in further detail. These books also share other things in common, but we'll save that for next time. For now, we'll just focus on the moon. Let me read an excerpt from the Moonlit Bamboo Forest Volume 3, as told by a mysterious figure in the wood. Long ago, 3 bright moons once hung high in the night sky. These 3 moons were sisters, their years numbering more than that of the Geo-Archon, and their year of birth dating before the very bedrock upon Liyue Harbour now rests. The 3 moons were daughters of prose and song, sovereign over the night sky. They navigated the heavens above in their silver carriage, alternating with one another thrice a month. If the rain was not promptly passed from one sister to the next, a terrible disaster would occur that very day. These 3 luminous moons shared but one love, the stars of daybreak. Only at fleeting moments when the day and night converged could one of the 3 sisters pass the fading stars and gaze upon the chambers of the morning stars. Moments later, as the new dawn would break over the horizon, the carriage would quickly ferry the night sisters away. The 3 sisters shared an equal affection for their one and only love, much like the affection they shared for one another. Before I read on, I will outline how these 3 sisters are referenced in other books with a few other details. In the records of Shui Yun, there is a mention of the Lunar Palace. In Heart's Desire, their names are revealed as Arya, Sonnet and Kanan, and that they parted by death in a great catastrophe. So let's read on. But this was all before the world was smashed against the tides of a great calamity. With time, disaster overturned the sovereign carriage and laid ruin to the halls and the stars. The 3 sisters of the night turned against one another, leading to their eternal parting by death. Only one of their pale corpses now remains, ever shedding its cold light. The never-changing moon that we see in the night sky is the corpse of a former goddess, and the disaster that ensued during their demise was so great that it left the stars in ruin. I believe these moon sisters still hold significance today, specifically when it comes to the island in the sky. By now you are probably familiar with this symbol because it is scattered throughout Teyvat when it comes to things that are tied to the gods and Celestia. It is called the Triquetra. It has many meanings throughout history and within many religions. This makes it very hard to pinpoint exactly what the symbol means, but I personally believe it's a reference to the 3 moon goddesses. In neo-paganism, it means the maiden, mother and crone, the triple goddesses. They represent different phases of the moon and the female life cycle. The symbol, when encompassed by a circle, signifies a union. Would it be a stretch to say in Teyvat that this symbol actually represents Arya, Sonnet and Kanan, the 3 moon goddesses, and that Celestia's origins are tied to them. Then will this explain why deep within the domain, behind this Irminsul tree, a tree that played a key role in rituals where the ancient civilizations communicated with Celestia directly, we have that very same symbol laid into the wall, but with a link that is broken? Does this symbol represent the parting of these 3 sisters, leading to their demise? Did the ancient civilizations know about this event? And let's not forget that we offer resin in the shape of crescent moons to these trees to receive gifts. But this isn't really answering our original question, so to seek possible answers, we must look to the unreconciled stars. When seeking the cause of the fallen stars and the origins of Leonard's tale on Pylos Peak, we travel to Musk Reef with Mona. We find Scaramouche waking from a daze from touching the fallen star. He turns to us and says he discovered something terrifying. The stars, the sky, is all a gigantic hoax, a lie. And what better evidence do we have to back up this claim than a moon without a lunar cycle? Is the moon itself false? I'm not sure, but I found this flavor text extremely unusual. A ritual prayer recited on the rising of the first new moon to ask for the moon's blessing in the form of wealth and good fortune. For your purposes, the new moon you shall pray to is the first ever new moon in Teyvat, since it's the first one you've seen here. A new moon is when the moon's brightest face is towards the sun, not the earth. If I'm understanding this correct, Teyvat has never even seen a new moon. This is suggesting that the lack of a lunar cycle is by design. Furthermore, the item is called the Blessing of the Welking Moon. Welkin meaning the vault of the sky, or better still, firmament, which means the heavens or sky, which is terminology from biblical cosmology. It's the idea that the world is like a snow globe, with the stars and the moon fixed to a large dome over the world. This isn't great evidence to the theory, but it's fun to mention nonetheless. In early in-game accounts, it's stated that the world was covered in ice and snow, and in the case of Mondstadt, it remained this way until Barbatos became the Archon and reshaped the landscape, turning Pylos Peak into Musk Reef. So in a way, it was kinda like a snow globe. In some depictions of the firmament, the heavens consist of the upper sea. Imagine it's a snow globe submerged in water. This is particularly interesting when you consider the means of which Mona uses the elements of hydro to read the stars. You will also see below the earth is the deep ocean named the Taham. This means the deep, or the abyss. When we read the description of the spiral abyss, it states, venturing out into the universe and down into the abyss are the same in that both are braving the dark unknown. There are 2 interpretations. One is that the universe and the abyss are dark unknowns, but the other way you could read this is to reach the abyss, one must travel out and then down to it. So when Dainsleif says, in the perpetual meantime of a sheltered eternity, most are content to live and not to dream, but in the hidden corners where the god's gaze does not fall, there are those who dream of dreaming. I believe it means the full sky is Celestia's influence. It is a full sky that covers the ever-ending sea outside. Furthermore, the name Teyvat sounds similar to Teyvat Noah, which in biblical Hebrew means Noah's Ark. Teyvat is the Ark, protecting his inhabitants from the Great Flood. The Great Flood was sent by God himself. So am I suggesting the world outside Teyvat is all water and we're just submerged in the snow globe? No. I mean it figuratively. In the Drunkard's Tale it talks about a wolf wandering through a wasteland. What I believe the water is darkness, and the abyss is a deeper darkness. When the Moon Sisters died, a great catastrophe happened, laying ruin to the stars, possibly plunging the world into darkness. And now, on all sides of Teyvat, it is surrounded by it. When you read through the history of Teyvat, there is a reoccurring theme: tyranny and liberation. This even occurs in the present story. During Leonard's time, Mondstadt was covered in snow as a result of constant feud between Andreas, the Wolf of the North, also known as Boreas, and the Caribbean, the god of storms. To fend off the bitter cold, the Caribbean created Old Mondstadt to house his people and protect it with whirling storms. You may know this as Storm Terror's lair. He believed he had good intentions, that he was protecting his people, but what he did not anticipate was the people would see him as a tyrant. The people who felt imprisoned, they rebelled, led by the nameless bard and Barbatos. who was but a small wisp at this point. Together they overthrew tyranny at the expense of the nameless bard's life. Boreas conceded the title of Anemo Archon to Barbatos, who took on the form of the bard to commemorate his courage, and this is when he reshaped the landscape and blew away the snow, establishing New Mondstadt. If you think this story sounds familiar, you're not wrong. We're seeing a very similar situation at the moment with Baal, isolating her people for reasons unknown. Begs the question, is she seizing visions to create a protective barrier for Inazuma in some form? I could imagine she would cause great storms to prevent anybody getting in or getting out. There are other examples of these themes, such as Vanessa and the Gunhilda clan overthrowing tyranny of the Lawrence clan in New Mondstadt. Freedom persists even with Liyue, where Zhongli hands over his gnosis and trusts control of Liyue to the people and the Adepti. Isolationism, imprisonment, freedom and eternity. These themes persist and they extend to Teyvat as a whole. So let's talk about the Sheltered Eternity of Celestia. As the common phrase goes, Celestia sus. But something I'm struggling to understand is the line from the self-proclaimed prophet. Yet the island in the sky set the earth to burn. But when it comes to disasters and wars, they all seem to be conducted by humanity or archons, and are not seeing Celestia itself conducting them. The only example I think we can argue is the scene that we see in the We Will Be Reunited trailer, but I don't even know if we're interpreting this scene correctly, and we all presume the unknown god is aligned with Celestia due to the title she gives us. The line doesn't have to be in the literal sense. What I believe this could actually mean is Celestia has set things up in such a way that humanity and the Archons will fight amongst themselves, divide and conquer. The gods goad us on with the promise of their 7 treasures, rewards for the worthy, the doorway to divinity. The lore outlines that the cataclysm was a result of Gold's ambitions when it came to alchemy, and this gave birth to the shadowy monsters that many believe to be the Abyss Order and the Hilichurls. What I also find strange is the story of Leonard. He had an ambition to climb Pylo's Peak, but what is atop that peak? A portal to the Abyss. Maybe this is not intended, but I can't help but get the feeling that they're suggesting that the ambition of humanity leads to the Abyss. The moment Vanessa ascends to Celestia, it resembles what some have pointed out to be a prison with a great watchtower in the middle, and yet another island at its peak. The doors shut behind her. She ascended because she proved worthy, but I can't help but think she's only been locked into another prison, as punishment for her ambition. I believe this is greater than Celestia. Just like the Caribbean sealed his people in the wind to protect them from the outside blizzard, Celestia seals its people in its sheltered eternity from the outside darkness. The title of the game in Chinese translates to Original God. There has to be a power that resides over Celestia, as it is Noah and Teyvat is the Ark, surrounded in the great flood of darkness, ushered in by something greater. Civilizations long past have perished and now lay ruin in the darkness, as Celestia suppresses its people through divide and conquer and punishment of its ambition, because that curiosity and ambition leads to darkness. If you reach this far, remember to leave a like and let me know your thoughts. There is still much to explore on this subject and these themes, so next time I'll explore these ancient civilizations and hints towards Genesis.